Well, hello there and welcome everyone to the Advisor's Edge podcast. I'm your host, Rob Jacomen, and I am here and honored to be solo with my co-host, Chad Ramberg. Chad, how you doing today?
It is great holiday season. Yeehaw. We're going, right?
Yeah, and it's freezing here. It's like 27 degrees. Yeah, it's one of those things where we're coming to close on the year. Had a great 2024, looking forward to 2025. And you know what we thought we'd do in this episode is we take some time and really talk about the conference season, the fall conference season, and review and kind of share some key insights, some takeaways, share some challenges and some opportunities that, Chad, you learned while you were at both conferences. You went to NAPFA as well as the Schwab IMPACT. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover both of those, and we're going to talk about some key takeaways that you and your team both had from attending both those events, and really get into the value and the benefit and the big why. Why would you attend conferences? Well, I can tell you what my answer would be to that, but Chad, I'll let you go first.
Well, it's a funny thing. For us to attend a conference, one reason we love to attend a conference is because that's our opportunity to see our clients face to face. So it's great. As we've been going to conference over years, every once in a while you'll see someone, and this happened with I think Peter and Nick, a couple of longtime clients. I just had to run over and say hi face to face, shake their hand. Otherwise, we don't get to see clients. So for us, it's that opportunity to see you face to face, shake their hand. They know we're a real person, not just a robot out here doing stuff for them, right? Relationship building. It's really, and so what happens is a lot of times when I'm on the call with a different advisor here or there, conference discussion will come up and they're like, oh, I've been thinking or wondering about this conference or that conference. Should I go? Why or why not? And it's always a little funny for me because when I was an advisor, I like, well, going to a conference, that takes you away from your day-to-day potentially connecting with a client, which can be painful, right? But there's a value to it too. And so the value for most of them, this is what I say is I don't know. It's going to depend on what is important and what you need. What do you need relationally? What do you need in your business? Because it's really good when you can connect with a like group of advisors. They're not right around the corner from you. So you can have open conversations that you wouldn't have with the advisor right around the corner, right? And you can explore things that maybe have been on your mind, and you find out you're not the only one dealing with this challenge. You're all business owners running an organizations of various different sizes. There's going to be someone at that conference that's very similar to you and probably on the other side of the country. And it's just nice to know that you're not alone out there fighting the good fight, doing the good work for clients, So I think that's the biggest reason. So then how often? I don't know. Maybe it's once a year. Maybe it's every couple of years. Maybe it's to get CE. It's really going to depend. Maybe it's you've got some developments in your business that are coming up that you want to explore and you want to talk to some potential vendors and get some ideas, right? All of this can happen. And yes, it's concentrated within a few days. But the biggest value that a lot of advisors say to me, it's actually after the conference when you're at dinner or you run into somebody at the hall. Funny thing happened. This was a year ago, I think. One of our clients in Florida, she didn't know what I looked like. I didn't know what she looked like. We literally in the hotel, we walk into the hotel, into the elevator at the hotel. And she looks at my tag and she's like, Chad, and I say, what's up? And she's like, she had this thing on her mind about a potential claim. So, it was a serious thing. And so we just did a little sidebar there and went into it. And we just happened to bump, and it was just perfect timing. She's like, I couldn't have planned this, couldn't have ended up better. There's those little moments that happen at conference that are just absolute gold and beautiful moments. So it's a little bit ambiguous, but there's also some specific things to come into play when we're going to a conference. So what I'd love to do is tell you a little bit about how I see it, but I want to preface all of this with anybody listening now, or if you're watching this video, here's what I would love. Let us know what you would find helpful to know when we go to a conference. So one thing we're talking about is getting a little mobile podcast set up so we can actually bring you something from the conference. Yes. I think that would be cool. Okay. I think Rob thinks it would be cool. It would be fun.
I'd like to see it take it to the next level and actually go live. How cool would that? Hey, we're live
I
at the
think
conference.
I think that would be cool too. But I want to know, because of the way we work at Box Professional, it's what's important to you, the client, the advisor, so let me know what would be really good for what would you want to hear? Because I recognize you guys can't make it out to all these conferences. We're going to be there anyway. So let's make it more useful for you. That's the idea. So,
yep. You know what's I want to share something before we launch into that. I want to share something really interesting because Alex on your team, he shared some gold nuggets with me. And this is where this kind of ties into what you're talking about. This is the value of going to conference is you take things away from that because this is an opportunity for everybody to kind of get together and like it's a tight-knit community. So it's an opportunity for everybody to get together and say, hey, what's going on in the world? Like what's going on in your business? What things are changing? What things are working? What things aren't working for you? And it's kind of an opportunity to get an insider's view of what's going on a micro level in each area of everyone's business, but also the macro view of what's going on in the industry. And I think that is truly where the value and the why kind of meet with each other. And that's the big takeaway. And what Alex told me was, I said, well, what was your big takeaway? And he said, my big takeaway was what advisors really shared with me is they're really interested in learning more ways that they can grow their firm, grow their business, market themselves, and, build a content machine where they're just getting tons of eyeballs on all their stuff and really becoming well-known in their space. And I thought, man, that's a great takeaway. I would have never thought about that necessarily. Like I always knew it was an issue or a question or something that would be interesting. But the fact that was the first thing he said was like, man, you take that away from that conference, that's gold right there. Because now you know what's really important to your clients. So then Alice can take that and go, hey, maybe we should make more content about that stuff. Maybe we should start communicating things and adding even more value to our clients. And that's the big takeaway from my perspective for you guys and what you guys took away as an outsider who I didn't go to the conference, but the cool thing is I asked Alex about it and that was his big takeaway. And I thought, man, that's right there is gold.
Yeah. Cause it's everything we do. If it's not helping the client, it's probably, maybe we shouldn't be doing it. I mean, there's things we have to do, licensing and stuff that clients don't want to know about, but absolutely. No, that's seeing Alex out there at the conference directly interacting with clients, it's just really rewarding. So I do want to thank everybody that shows up at conference. It's a commitment in your time and travel, and we usually have it sometimes in fun places.
Yeah.
So
you wanted me to walk through with you, like, let's start with NAPFA and share some of your insights and what you learned or what your big takeaways were by going to NAPFA. And the other thing I want you to share is what big differences do you see with each type of conference, which like the NAPFA versus the Schwab IMPACT. Talk a little bit about the differences and the culture and the environment and what's different and unique about each of those.
Yeah. So NAPFA, if you don't know, NAPFA is National Association of Personal Financial Advisors.
It's a mouthful.
Okay, we have a lot. Yeah, I read it to make sure I got it right. But most people just know them as NAPFA. Okay, and their real focus here is now. Hopefully, we'll get some folks on the podcast. I talked to some really cool people. One NAPFA guy had been there almost 40 years. And I want to see if I can get him on the podcast because you get that history. I love history, the strength of that history. And the cool thing about NAPFA advisors is so they're focused really on financial planning. A lot of them do asset management also. Okay. But they don't sell any insurance, no life, health insurance, anything like that. They're fee only. And they're really strict on that. And some advisors, that's really tough because, they want to offer that financial advice of whatever it is for their client. But the NAPFA advisors are really focused and it's a really tight-knit community. Okay. It's a little bit smaller of a conference and the fall conference is a little bit smaller than the spring one. At least that's what I've noticed. And so, but the beauty of that is you have a group of advisors that consistently go to these conferences, and they know each other. Most of the advisors there have known each other for years. Now they have the what do they call them? The newer folks joining the industry.
The new generation.
The next gen, right. There's always the next gen there. And another fun thing that they do is NAPFA invites some colleges out, and they always have some college students kind of helping out. And it's fun to talk to the college students a little bit, what's happening there. But it's a smaller group. This fall, it was at Nashville, which was really cool for me because I'm learning guitar, and we got to go after one evening, went down with a whole group of advisors, walked down to their Main Street there. I forget what it was called, but we just walked up and down, and they're playing music in all these bars. And you could just pop in and out, no cover charge. And
awesome.
I mean, it's not, the only other place I've seen that's been close to that was Austin, Texas. So it was just a lot of fun to be able to explore around that and get some music and just have a good time with advisors. But the cool thing also about NAPFA is they really are so advisory focused. For example, the fall one, a lot of CE is happening. So they've got vendors there. The vendors for the fall conference, there's not quite as many of them. Okay. So the good thing for the advisors is they can really focus and hammer out their CE for their CFP, but really high level quality of financial planning with the NAPFA advisors. And they're doing some cool things with supporting CFPs. They always have a section in there where they do a CFP update, what's going on at a national level. One of the things they talked about, there was a marketing campaign they did that didn't land great. And so they were making some adjustments, kind of giving an update, what happened, why it happened. And like any good marketing campaign, it had some great ideas, but the way it landed was funny. So they pivoted, they adjusted, and they were explaining kind of what happened behind the scenes, why that happened, and where there was, what they learned from it, right? So that was cool. They also had some excellent speakers. And I should maybe pull up the guy's agenda here, but they had one of the breakout speakers was exactly on that, how to grow your business, and they usually have folks that are either working directly in the industry, financial services, or sometimes they'll have a really excellent speaker that is, a thought leader in maybe, balancing personal and business, or, it's a whole different, depending on where they're at in the country. I think they kind of pull regionally, which is fun about NAPFA. They're always bouncing all over. Spring was in Texas and Fort Worth. That's kind of our backyard. So that was fun. Yep. So the thing to watch for with a NAPFA conference, is if you're thinking about going to a conference, look at their website, and they're going to say where they're going to be. So next spring, I think it's in Phoenix, and they're bouncing all over the country. So you can kind of wait till they get close to you. So you might be able to drive there, or you don't have to have a 5-hour flight. Maybe it's just a couple-hour flight to pop in and enjoy that community of advisors. And I think exploring it, if you haven't been to a conference before, like a specific financial advisory conference, think about it, Yep. We have some of our clients, what they do, here's an idea for you. Because a lot of times it's the principals showing up, because they're trying to get business ideas, stay on top of things. AI is still a big conversation. At NAPFA, this conference, it was more focused on education and just what's going on the day-to-day with regulatory things. And part of that was because, we're right in the middle, or we're just wrapping up the election cycle. It was right at the end of October. So the election was right around the corner. So that added a lot of interesting conversations, how a change of administration could adjust how things look. So there were a lot of conversations around, well, this is how it is now. This is what could be, stuff like that.
It's like insider stuff. It's the stuff you want to hear. It's kind of like the water cooler chatter between colleagues and guys who are all over the country, and they get together and be like, hey, you know what? Here's what's going on in this. Hey, what do you think is going to happen with this election? What happens if so-and-so becomes president? I mean, it's like the stuff that you can't always have regular conversations with people about.
Right.
In your industry, you can like share things with them, and they're totally down with having those sidebar conversations, which is cool. That's the whole beauty of it. That's what it's like. It's the relationship side of this industry. And insurance is no different. I just had a guest on a podcast with me, and that was his entire belief, is that when you go to, we actually brought up conferences, and the whole idea of a conference is to go there, and he's like, he said, I'll never forget it. He told a story. He said, I'll never forget two people coming together as if they were best friends, yet they never really met in person, but one was an underwriter and one was an insurance agent. And like he said, watching them come together and embrace and have like just feel like they've known each other for years, even though they never met before. He's like, that's the beauty of going to conferences, is you get to actually put a name and a face and build real meaningful human connections and relationships with people. And you know what? I'll be honest, Chad. You know what I think about when I go to a conference?
What's that? Now I'm curious.
Well, I'm a sales guy, right? So
right.
One of the things I have like a hidden agenda in my mind. Like, come on. I mean, let's be honest. Let's get the elephant out of the room. When everybody goes to a conference, don't even tell me that you don't think about what the potential business opportunities and relationships that you could build at these events, where it might lead to something really awesome. Like an awesome connection might turn into somebody being on your podcast. An awesome connection might mean like, hey, you just landed a $2 billion, AUM opportunity with a new client. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I think about too. And that goes back to the relationship piece.
The secret is about NAPFA, all of those happened.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing?
All of those happened for us. But the NAPFA community also is just a great community. So I love them for that tight knit, how they're tight knit, a great group of folks. One thing I want to bring up real quick, what we did, one of our clients, Equita, which is a woman-led firm helping women advisors across the country get stronger and do a good job. We went to a dinner. I went to a dinner with a whole group of folks that were there. And it was just, it ended up being a little bit smaller than we expected, but the group of people were there by the end of that conversation, or by the end of the dinner. Well, that was the group after that dinner. A small group of us went down to the party bar row and we're listening to, but it was so cool that one of our longtime clients, that we got to meet some of their members and have dinner with them. And of course they were everybody's doing a little bit of prospecting. It's not necessarily to sell something big and new, but what you do want to know is you want to know, who's out there making the connections, getting to know, thinking seriously and carefully about this stuff. So that's NAPFA. If you're a fee only advisor, I encourage you to check them out. It's worth it. And awesome. There's local places all over, but I guess this is the selfish part. I go to the national conferences because I can bump into the most people.
And you know what? That's the whole point. The point is you want to, again, I go back to relationships, and you just never know what kinds of doors are going to open because you were of value to somebody else. And you said, hey, you know what? Give me your card or give me your contact info. I have some ideas to share with you. Let me share something I think this might help. And then all of a sudden a new relationship blossoms because of that, because you were helpful to somebody else. And it would have never happened had you not gone to the conference and ran into being at the right place at the right time. So what's next?
Let's pivot. Let's pivot to Schwab IMPACT.
Yep.
And this is actually an interesting thing to pivot, because one of the fun things that happened at Schwab IMPACT was bumping into someone that I hadn't seen for since 2013, 2014. Okay.
Oh, that's a long
time. So that was a lot of fun. So IMPACT, if you are a Schwab advisor, you need to go to IMPACT at least once, right? It's almost like the Super Bowl of the financial conferences. It's impressive. It's fun. It was in San Francisco this year. That was really cool because a bunch of advisors were taking rides in Waymos and seeing what it was like to drive in a car with no driver, which I had to do that too. After I talked to 3 or 4 people that did it, they said, oh, it's pretty easy. And you're a little nervous at first, but here's what I learned from that. And so this is where it has a business application, because I did it kind of a car guy. And I just wanted to see what it was like. And then once I did it, I said, this is fascinating to see. And if you know anything about autonomous cars, it really started back with DARPA in 2004, and it's amazing to see where we've come.
It probably made you cringe as an insurance guy. You're probably like, oh my gosh, like I can just imagine. I know I'm an insurance guy, and I'm sure all I thought about was like all the bad things that could happen. Right?
Well, actually, I love it from an insurance guy standpoint, and the reason is this: when I used to be on more the claim side of things, look, insurance premiums are there because things get paid out, right? I mean, it's math. It's, actuators out there doing the math. Now, yes, the brokers are going to get paid and the people doing the math are going to get paid, but there's a allocated cost to that risk. As that risk can reduce, it's going to change a lot of things. But so it was really fun to be able to see what can be done with the well-built system using technology well. And so this is what was coming up a whole lot at Schwab Impact is what's going on with AI, right?
Yeah,
we've had Jump on this program. There's a few other companies in the financial services space that are really building tools around AI. What's also happening is I was talking with some CRM companies and how CRMs are starting to either partner with the AI companies or integrate it and support what they're doing to just simplify it across the board. Because the concept there is the more time as an advisor you can sit with your client building the relationship or in front of potential clients, the more valuable it is for your clients and the more valuable it is for you. So that's really key to that conversation, which was fun for me. I got to sit down and have some direct conversations with some AI companies, and also a big conversation going out there is M&A. In the RIA space, we're seeing, and I think this has been something that's been going on since I've been in the industry, about 13 years, specifically helping advisors, is in 13, 14, so many people breaking away from wirehouses and migrating away from the broker-dealer space and creating their own RIAs. That's still happening quite a bit because it's a way to monetize the life that you've had in financial services and take your clients and work for a few years directly and then maybe spin it off, right? And go, move off into that new chapter of life. That's still a big conversation. And so I talked with some folks on what's happening there and how that's going. We're still seeing a lot of M&A activity. I say when we lose clients, most of the time it's because they merged with someone, and or sometimes we gain a client too from it. But it's an interesting world on what's going on there. So that's really important. Also, it was a lot of fun talking with folks that are closely associated with what we do. So, and that's compliance firms. Talked with a few different compliance firms. And it was fun to see what they're doing and how they're finding different tools to integrate better. Some of the compliance firms are doing almost an outsourced CCO model. Some compliance firms are really focused on, if you're a new RIA that's breaking away, how do you get up to speed? They're really good at that. Okay. Some compliance firms, if you're going to open up a private fund or mutual fund or ETF, they're really good at that. So the beauty of Schwab is they bring all those together along with, the ETFs that are being built, the mutual fund companies, all of that. You can hit them all in a few days, right?
Yep. That's awesome.
So, that's the biggest value, in my opinion, of going to Schwab. If you're a Schwab advisor or you're using Schwab as custodial, it's worth going to. If you're exploring or thinking about breaking away, it's worth going. Even if you don't end up using Schwab as custodial, you're going to learn a lot. Okay. And, get in touch with a BDO. They'll be happy to show you around about what they do and how they can be a good resource. That's what the good BDOs do. And they're really good at connecting you to those resources that you might need if you're breaking away.
Yep.
Now, if your custodial is Schwab, they also have a great party at the end. So,
bonus.
That was a bonus. So a place I had never been to is, I think it's the Palace or something like that. It's an old arts. It's from one of the fairs, world fairs in early 20th century. Amazing place in San Francisco. And I tell you what, those Schwab Impact team does an amazing job, and they put a whole ton of work into a first-class experience. So
Sure,
it's just a lot of fun.
No expense, right?
Really, they don't. So, it's a good time. It's a good time. Fantastic. I had one of our interns, actually, is fun. He's going to college, finishing up college in what's just south of San Francisco there. I should remember the name of the college. Anyhow, he's finishing up down there. Santa Clara, that's it. Yeah, he's getting a finance degree down there. And I said, hey, you're in finance. Why don't you come on up? If you can make it up here, we'll take you to dinner. And, he's a younger guy, out there working hard. And I think it was fun for him to kind of see what it looks like at that level.
Yeah.
And so we went out to dinner, and I had to pay for his Uber ride back home. Otherwise he would have gotten back way too late. I said,
well, that's what happens when you're young and you're still in school. You're like poor, and it's but the experience he got from that is invaluable.
Absolutely.
That's the thing we should be doing a lot more with the younger generation, is get them excited about the industry, getting them exposed to the inside, because they only see what they can see from going to school or what their perceptions are, but getting them in the inside and introducing them some great people, it's all part. I think it should be required as part of the experience. So that's awesome. I think the big takeaway for me as I'm listening to you, Chad, is mm-hmm. I think a question that often runs through people's minds is, what's the ROI of conferences?
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's not the right question to ask, because I think it's way deeper than that. There's things that you can't measure. Relationships can't always be measured that way. And that's probably not the best way to look at it. But I know sometimes people look at it like, well, I've seen the chatter on LinkedIn about like going to conferences. Well, it's a big expense and you're away from the office and it costs a lot to get there. But you know what? Sometimes you got to say to yourself, what is the value in the relationships and the opportunities? And here's what it boils down to in my mind. You go to every conference with a game plan and intention, some intentionality. You think to yourself like, all right, here's my goal. Here's what I want to get out of this for me. And how can I also contribute back to somebody else who's going to gain value from me coming? That's right. I think that's the great takeaway is maybe we don't always have to think about ROI, but it's in fact, relationships are so much deeper than just a dollar figure. But just imagine if you go there and all of a sudden this opportunity comes up that you would have never had you not been there and showed up. And I think that's the probably 80%. I can't remember who said that, but 80% of the game in life is just showing up. And sometimes you just show up at these places and there's just incredible opportunities if you're open to it and you have a game plan about how you are going to, intentionally make it worth your while and have fun with it.
Yeah. I think that's actually, I love your thought on how to approach it. Have a game plan, have these things that you want to make sure and learn, and you'll learn them. Yep. And then you will be surprised by the value of the connection you make with other advisors and or resources that you just didn't know was there.
Yep,
okay.
100%.
And then, who knows? You're going to build those long-term connections. An example of something that we found, we had one thing I like. I always gravitate to a company that, because here's something to know. When you're a vendor there, you're sitting around, they have the times when everybody's walking through and you're chatting with people. That's great. And then everybody goes into a breakout session and it's dead quiet. Right?
There's silence. What do you do to fill the void?
You talk to whoever's sitting beside you, right?
100%.
And you get to know them, which is just fun. But sometimes, and I gravitate to those businesses that are being built for advisors who have been advisor. That's probably because I came from that seat. And I joke with folks is obviously I'm not a very good advisor. I'm not anymore. But what you find a lot of times that you'll have some folks doing some amazing things where they're an advisory firm and they're like, you know what, I just saw a need and I'm building it. So I get to talk with these folks that are doing something because they saw a need and they're building it. And that is just that. So you can connect on so many levels. Yeah.
When you
Have
met the
fun.
guys,
And
you met the crew at Vigilant when you were there, and then we had Thane in our show, which
yeah, Thane was on here, and it was so great because CJ was there, and one of the key CCOs was there. But it was really cool to get some time with a larger team there, and we weren't that far apart, so we got to chat and have a good time. It was just fantastic. So,
well, coming full circle, I think we can say, like, maybe we wrap it up here and just say what a success it was for you guys. I know as an observer, I can see the excitement and the enthusiasm level that all of your team came back with. And, it's really the value of those relationships and then where you take it from there. It's all in what you want to get out of it, but also what you're bringing your best A game to those conferences as well and get the most out of it. So, Chad, any final thoughts about that as we wrap up?
Yeah, final thought is this. We're investing a lot to go to conferences, which we're going to keep doing, okay? But what I'd love to do is I would love to figure out how to make it helpful for you as the advisor. I think having something that helps get that feedback, because even if you can only make it every few years, it might be helpful for you to know that's, what's happening there. So what is that thing that you want to know if you can't make it? Chad, please let us know about this. It gives me something to keep an eye out for when I'm going to conference, and then it'll make a lot more fun when we get to do these wrap ups.
100%. And you know what? And here's an idea. Mm-hmm. The next one, maybe you do an end of day recap. You do a quick video and you're like at the conference, you're doing a video, and this is great for content creation too. And then we can get it out there like, hey guys, we're here at NAPFA conference. Here's our takeaway from day one. It was this huge success. I met so-and-so, I met this person, and then you tag them in it. And it's like, then you start to create some engagement and some excitement around it. And like, that's how these relationships it's like its own little flywheel. They just grow, and they you just create some engagement. Maybe you do something like that, and maybe an end of conference summary where we can put it in your newsletter, and then have people subscribe to your newsletter and say, hey, if you want to recap, we put together a nice little summary of what we will learn, the big takeaways, the big insights, just so you can be of value to your clientele.
Well, that's why I like working with you, Rob. You help make me better. And the advisors will have more to take back to their clients when they go to conference.
100%. 100%. All right, guys, listen, thank you so much for joining us today on the Advisor's Edge podcast. We are so grateful and so appreciative of everyone's support. If you like what you're hearing, please consider subscribing and, be on the lookout for the next show. I think we're probably going to go into 2025 with a bang here, Chad. And this may be one of our last two shows of the year before we move in. And I just want to say, I feel like this was a success for us too, because we just launched Advisor's Edge podcast. Our mission, our purpose was to create some value for the industry and give a different perspective, different insights, bring on some really interesting people who have a lot of value to share with the industry. And that was my whole intention, is just giving everything we can back to the industry where we feel like there's some value created there.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we'll see you on the next show.